Well, good morning everyone. Welcome to Voice Essentials, another live hangout here on YouTube, and Sarah's already in. She's already telling us that she's excited about today's episode. Well, we're going to be treading very carefully in today's episode because we're going to be looking at we're going to be talking about my philosophy of singing, but I'm going to be sharing that it's really being driven by some discussion I've observed online and participated a little bit in a particular forum, which I'm not going to mention because it is a closed group of for a certain group of people. I'm not even going to give away even the name of the forum because that's an important thing to protect the forum. But I want to talk about the philosophy of singing and how us understanding what our philosophy is when we approach our singing, how it then directs our learning, how in my case it directs my teaching, and so I'm looking forward to having that conversation with you today. And of course, as always, I'm very much looking forward to answering your questions. We try to answer at least 3 or 4 questions over the space of the next 30 minutes or so. So make sure you take a moment to write your questions in the notes section, in the comments section, the live chat. And of course, if you're watching this after the live stream and you're watching one of the archived video here on YouTube, always leave your comments in the notes sections below because I'm very happy to answer those questions if I'm able to. I don't know everything, and that's going to be a part of our discussion today. Dr. Dan does not know everything. Shock, horror. No, it's true, I don't, but we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about, then how do I have the right to then teach and all of that sort of stuff. Hopefully it's going to be really beneficial to your learning to sing, and that's the key here. This is not going to just be Dr. Dan talking about himself. This is going to be, hopefully, informing your development as a singer. So please stick around, and we are going to have a great show today. Let's get into it.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
So as I said, it's a beautiful day here in Brisbane, Australia. Let's go across to the video. Some of you are going to be jealous of this blue sky. Get a load of that. It is a gorgeous day here in Brisbane. It's around about 18, 19 degrees. Just beautiful. There's a crispness in the air because, of course, we're in autumn. And it's 10 a.m. here on a Tuesday morning. Here in Brisbane, we're in a state of Australia called Queensland. And we've just had a public holiday. It is the 4th week we've had a public holiday, and so that's the last 4-day week we'll have for quite some time. My wife, myself, and my kids, we really did our best to try and enjoy it, and it was really a very beautiful weekend. And as you can see, the weather has just been, look at that blue sky. It is gorgeous. Of course, let us know where you're from. Let us know what time it is. What is the weather like? And, that helps us get to know each other. And we've always got regular names here. Let's jump across to who's jumped in already. So Sarah was first in. Cassio de Santa Ana from Brazil. Paper Gamer from Peru again. Paper Gamer's a regular here. And Ibicon, he's been here, or he or she, I don't know what your gender is, but you've been here before. Cav Trans a regular. Good to see you from Canada again. And Karen's jumped in from Boston, from Singwise Vocals. Thank you, Karen, for joining us. Linda, she's a fellow Aussie. She's from down Tasmania way, and that's the big benefit of this. I really do I feel like I get to know you, and hopefully you get to know me. And there's a whole heap of other people, names here that are quite familiar to me. Tony's jumped in from Florida, USA, 75 degrees. Someone help me out. I am not a Fahrenheit kind of guy. We work in Celsius here. Someone help me out. I do not know what 75 degrees is in Celsius. So you're going to have to educate me. Let me know. Grey and drizzling for Karen. which is not pleasant. Karen, let me tease you once again. Look at that. That is picture perfect. We have a saying here in Queensland, Australia, and that is Queensland is beautiful one day, perfect the next. We really are very fortunate with our weather here in Brisbane, and so I'm sorry to hear, Karen, that you've got yourself a bit of a dreary day. Okay, 75 is nice and warm, but not too hot. Yeah, well, Sarah, that's great, but you've got to tell me the exact temperature. Someone jump onto Google and, let's find out what the actual degrees is. 23.8889 degrees Celsius. Fair enough. That's a very exact measurement. So your degrees, Tony, is not that different to what we're experiencing today, just maybe a little bit warmer. So let's get into today's program, and of course, make sure, as you can see, people are already commenting. This is what I love about what we do here at Voice Essentials during the live chat, because I want to answer your questions. So make sure you start writing your questions in even now, so that I can come back up through the thread and answer your questions. I don't get to all of them, especially as our live streams are growing. I'm just not getting to all of them. If you want to, you can use the super chat function, and I will always prioritize super chat functions, the super chat, because it makes sure that question gets highlighted and I'm able to answer that for you. Okay, so let's talk about this thing called philosophy of singing. And as I said, I've observed to some degree from a distance, in the sense that I haven't participated. Well, I did participate in this particular online forum discussion, but I was a latecomer to the discussion. And it's interesting, what I was pleased to see in this particular forum, there was a fair level of mutual respect, professional respect shown between those who were engaging in what was, in some respects, a rather heated conversation, a heated debate, if you like. And that's really great. But what I think sometimes happens in our online space is we kind of lose those personable filters, don't we? And as a result, some of our information is delivered in a manner that is abrupt, can be abrasive, can be at times offensive, at times unintentionally. Sometimes it's intentionally insulting to the person that may have left the post or what have you. None of us want to be considered to be a troll, but sometimes our conversation can be troll-like. And there's certainly been some YouTube creators of recent who have been making really inflammatory discussion and being very attacking other coaches, and we're not going to be commenting on that specifically today. But it is important that in our own learning that we understand what basis that is coming from. And here's what I want to make a really clear statement around. Every singing teacher, indeed every singer, every student of voice has a philosophy of voice, a philosophy of singing, an underlying thought process that is a subtext. It's often unstated. They often don't tell you up front. Sometimes they themselves don't even know what's driving their view of the world. And it is, in many respects, a world view when it comes to voice. And so one such world view that is still dying a hard death in certain parts of the world is that if you want to learn to sing, you have to learn with classical tuition, classical technique. If you want to learn to sing anything, you must learn first and foremost classical technique. And we know here on the YouTube, on our Voice Essentials here, that that's not the case. We work very specifically to task-specific technique. Classical technique is exceptional if you are a classical singer. But if you are a contemporary singer, contemporary genres, rock, pop, country, jazz, some modern music theatre, metal, those sort of genres. All of those genres need contemporary technique. So I just want to go through a range of things. I want to put it right out there. Where does Dr. Dan stand in all of this? What is my philosophy of voice? But as we're going through these, I want you to really think long and hard about, does that resonate with you? Does what I say resonate with your thoughts and your place in the world? Not hopefully that if it doesn't, that it doesn't drive you away, that it actually empowers you to go, oh, I think differently to Dr. Dan about that. Maybe I can engage in discussion, you know, and that brings me to my first point. And I said it a little bit earlier in the what are we doing here? The live hangout, and that is, I do not know it all. I don't think I know it all. I never will know it all. Look, there is far too much to know about the human voice and about teaching singing for me or any other individual to have the omniscient, the all-knowing knowledge of voice. In my lifetime, we still will not have got into the very depth of our understanding about singing. I'm getting a little bit hot in here. I'm going to turn my air conditioning on so that I don't start to sweat up a storm. And that's really important. So that what should then come out of our understanding that we don't know it all? We only have a portion of the picture. I very much regard myself as a critical realist. I know I don't have the whole picture. I'm constantly seeking other people's opinions and views and understandings about the voice so that my view can be enriched. And I encourage you to do the same. What that should do for us when we're online, when we are engaging in discussion, is it should cause us to own and ground our conversation. To constantly go, look, I don't know whether this is right or wrong, but here's what I've been thinking. Here's what I might, think about the whole thing. And it should cause you to really acknowledge it. And we refer to that as owning and grounding. And so that's a really important thing. The other thing you want to know also, and this could be reflected on some of the things that I've been seeing on YouTube just recently, is a little bit of knowledge can be a very dangerous thing. And a little bit of knowledge, here's a little proverb for you, a little knowledge puffs up. That little slither of knowledge, and suddenly that little piece of knowledge can make the owner of that little piece of knowledge feel quite haughty and feel like they've, no, it's only a little piece of knowledge. And sometimes when you add that little piece of knowledge to this little piece of knowledge, it doesn't completely wipe out the first piece of knowledge, but it does radically change the understanding of that first piece of knowledge. Be very careful of things here online when teachers give you only one side of the story or only one piece of research. Let me give you a really big important thing in the area of research. There are multiple views on nearly every aspect of teaching voice. Why? Because we as a singing teaching community, a voice research community, still don't know it all. We are all learning. There are certainly foundational fundamentals that we have developed that are starting to be bedded down in our understanding. But be very careful of people that are making categoric comments about certain aspects of voice and teaching voice and how voice is formed, especially around things like breath management, resonance, there's a laryngeal posture. Be careful. Now, some of you have seen my videos. Many of you have seen my videos where I do make some fundamental statements. I encourage you, always call me to account. I'm accountable to you, my community. Always call me to account if you feel I've been too categoric in my statement. If I have only backed up what I've said with my blinkers on. And that's really important. It's important for me to remain accountable to you, my community, but it's also going to help me develop as a teacher and make me a far better, more rounded teacher if I'm not always hell-bent on giving absolutes. Because here's the other thing, human voice, every single student that steps into my studio, whether it be here online or here in the privacy of this teaching studio, every voice is different, and I'm constantly adjusting and shifting and trying to, refine what I do to suit that individual voice. So yeah, be very careful of absolutes. The second thing I wanted to talk about, the philosophy of my teaching, is I believe it is the birthright of every human being to sing. You, me, a person with Down syndrome, everyone, the disabled through to the able-bodied, everyone, it's the human birthright of every person to sing. And I am passionately opposed to the modern Western world that says we have singers and non-singers. That is an absolute horrible thing that we've done in our society. TV talent shows are possibly the biggest culprits. Let me take you across to, I'll show you, let me take you across to, I want to direct you to, in the comments sections below, let me see if I can find the right, and let me take you to here. I've recently written a post about TV talent shows. There's a link in the notes section below that directs you to, this is my blog, and some of you subscribe to that. If not, you can always subscribe down here. But I would really encourage you to have a read through this blog, learn a little bit more about TV talent shows and the horrible thing that they are. They have, in part, contributed to this idea that we have singers and non-singers. That is not true. Never measure yourself against another when it comes to the development of your voice. Your voice is unique, your voice is precious, and it deserves to be heard. Every voice deserves to be heard. And that's why here at Voice Essentials, you'll often hear me open my videos by saying, welcome to Voice Essentials, where everybody sings. Because I believe everybody can sing if they want to sing. Not everyone wants to sing. I'm not a big fan of dancing. I don't know whether we could say Dr. Dan dances. I'm not very good. But if I wanted to gyrate around the room, I'm allowed to, because I've got a body with, that can move in a fashion. But it's the same with singing. Everybody sings. Before we get on to a few more points, let's jump across to some of the discussion that I saw going on, which was exciting to see. There's really vibrant discussion happening today. It's just so good. Rebecca, hey Beck, good to see you. Rebecca's one of my students from way up in Bundaberg, and it's good to see her jumping in on a live feed here. There's just some really good activities. Don't forget to leave your questions here as we go along, because I'll be answering your questions later on in the program. But before we get to that, let me just continue on with some stuff here. So another part of the philosophy of my teaching is very much that there is a difference between classical and contemporary, which is what I mentioned earlier. You do need specific, task-specific technique for all the for the difference between contemporary and classical, and it's no longer acceptable in the modern age, given what we understand, to suggest that you don't require task-specific technique, that all singing should be founded on classical tuition. Our ultimate aim for all genres is for the voice to be well balanced, for it to be set up in a sustainable manner. But my personal approach is that there are very specific things, such as things around breath management, resonance, articulation, the way we use onsets and offsets. There's a whole range of stuff that govern the fact that contemporary voice, dependent on the genre, needs a different setup. And sadly, all too often, I have seen voices step into my studio that actually have come to me referred by ears, nose and throat doctors and speech therapists whose voice, they've been contemporary singers, rock singers who are using their voice in a professional setting, but have been set up classically, and that is that really is a surefire way to placing your voice at high risk of wear and tear. So that's one of my philosophies. That's how I approach it. Now, there's the fourth philosophy that I want to bring to your attention is, let me just go back over here and I'll show you this post. So this is again, this is the post that I was just showing. So if we go to this one here, singing methods versus singing principles. And here's where you'll notice that I don't purport to be a methodologist. I never want to be known as a methodologist. I have a pathway, a well-trod pathway that I tend to take most of my students along. And because most of my students, when they step into my studio, they are beginners technically, and so we have a place that we start with nearly all of my students. I'll just get out of there. But that does not mean that I'm a methodologist. I have been influenced by methodologists. I refer to them in that article that I was just referring to as power users. Methodologists are people, the good methodologists, ones like Joe Estelle, Jeannie LaVetri, Seth Riggs in his earlier days. There's a whole range of people that have been really qualified as standout methodologists. I refer to them as power users, people that have really understood the principles that drive our voices. I want to encourage you to read I won't go into it in too much depth. Have a read of the article in your own time, and you can have a comment on that and have a read of it. But methods and principles, hopefully I do my very best here on my channel, here in my studio, to always direct you to the principles of voice, not methods per se. I try to avoid step 1, 2, 3. Sometimes that's a necessary and valuable tool, and methods typically will take that direction, step 1, 2, 3. But be very careful when it is very tempting to then become wedded to a particular method or a particular methodologist. Be very careful to not find yourself blinkered. Again, it comes back to this idea of no one method can teach you everything. It's not possible, and so it's really important that you don't ever let yourself become blinkered. Again, and you'll see this in the article, at times along your developmental journey, it can be a positive thing, but at other times it can be a really stifling area of development. And finally, one last thing about my philosophy of singing, and I hope this is being helpful. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button if today's discussion is helping you and helping to guide your development as a singer. Learning to sing is a lifelong journey. This is not going to happen overnight. And I've said on my channel many times before, YouTube cannot teach you to sing. YouTube can be a very effective tool. I'd love to think that Voice Essentials, my channel, is a part of your journey. It helps and factors into your development. But YouTube will never, well, I can't say never, can I? I mean, technology being what it is and the pace at which it develops. At this point in history, YouTube cannot diagnose, correct, instruct you individually to the point where YouTube can't hear you sing a note and go, oh, you sound like you're overdriving that. Maybe we could adjust that. Can we see if we can pull that back, 10%, 15%? Where, oh, can you hear that placement? YouTube can't do any of that. It can't diagnose your vocal condition. What YouTube can do is lay out a whole series of markers that you can, in your initial stages of development, you can line yourself up against that help with vocal health. It helps with some general warm-ups and those sorts of things. But ultimately, every singer is going to find, every developing singer, everyone who's passionate about really developing the voice, you are ultimately going to need to find yourself with a singing teacher. It is a gold standard process to find yourself with a singing teacher. Now, of course, singing teaching, especially with qualified singing teachers, can have an expense. It can. And I'm not backward in saying my prices are not cheap. And so sometimes you've got to really save up to do it. But, hopefully the teacher that you choose to spend time with, whether it be online or whether it be in their studio, will really see you achieve personally focused and refined results. And I think that's really important. Never circumnavigate the journey. The journey has too much to teach you. I won't get on my soapbox about TV talent shows, but TV talent shows regularly circumnavigate the journey. They create this illusion that you can go from zero to hero in, 10 weeks. The Australian version of The Voice is a 10-week program now. It's not even 3 months. It creates an illusion that these people have been taken from zero to hero in such a short amount of time. That may well be one of the, and it's only one of the reasons why many of the artists that we see on these TV shows are never heard from again, because they've, in a sense, their development has been aborted. And that's inflammatory language, but that's kind of how I see it. So I hope that's all helpful to you. Hit the thumbs up button if you've enjoyed our opening discussion. That's been 30 minutes. Wow. I didn't realize I had that much to say about it. Hopefully it's been really, really helpful. Let's go across to some questions now, and I'm going to go way back up here, and I can see a lot of you are already, so Dommy, here we go, Dommy Key Getter. Every time I try to sing in my upper range, I feel as though I'm reaching for them and or my throat starts to close up. I feel this stretch around A or G above middle C. Any help? Also, hi. That very much sounds to me like, firstly, you're approaching your a point of passaggio, a point where the voice wants to transition. Dommy Key Getter, I'm going to presume, given where you've said that you're having a challenge, that you are male, perhaps. I'm not sure. No, it could actually, that could be equally a female. Look, here's a little rule of thumb. Again, you can jump in and have a look at many of my videos on this topic of voice registration and transitions. But here's another little way to think about it, which I don't think I've ever shared on the channel. When you approach your passaggio, approach it in a very similar way to approaching a speed bump in a car. If you hit that speed bump flat out, if you just accelerate at it, in the case of singing, if you're just driving the voice towards the passaggio, then the voice is going to hit that point, and it's just going to go. It's going to be a shock, right? And you can bump around and it'll just be horrible. Whereas if you learn to approach that point by just backing your air off a little, in fact, sometimes as you're first starting out, it's backing it off a lot. It's just getting that voice to not push through, but back off it just like you would a car going over a speed bump. We back off the accelerator, we glide over the bump, and then we accelerate off. Try that as a way of approaching your passaggio. I'm making presumptions here that you are talking about your passaggio, your transition, but see how you go with that Domikita. Domikita. I hope I got that right. Okay. Paper game has had to go. Dr. Dan, I have to leave. I wanted to ask you something that's been bugging me for a while. Well, I'm sure Paper Game, I think you've probably already gone by now, so we'll move on. Here we go. When you are training or doing vocal warm-ups, are you supposed to do it in classical style? Should be your warm-ups should be in the style that your muscle memory has been formed into. That's a term I didn't use earlier on in our discussion. What we're doing when we develop the voice in with classical technique or contemporary technique, we are developing muscle memory. We talked about muscle memory, I think, in the last live show. So if you're interested, go and jump and have a look at that. And so when you come to your warm-up, really it should be your muscle memory that informs how your voice then behaves in the warm-up. If you are warming the voice up classically, then your voice will behave in a classical manner as it will with contemporary. Great weather in LA. Shorts and no shirts. As long as you've got the shorts on, Jose. As long as you've got the shorts on. Here we go. It's raining in Wisconsin, USA. Wade, welcome. This is your first time. Sometimes when you have to sing, you cannot warm up prior to performing. So how long does a warm-up last before it's not effective anymore? Good question. I always say that a warm-up needs to happen within around about an hour of stepping onto stage. Generally speaking, and I've been professionally performing for 25 years, the times it is a very rare circumstance when I'm not able to etch out that 10 to 15 minute warm-up prior to stepping on stage. I understand there are those moments, they do happen, but make sure that those moments are the exception, not the rule. Yeah? Otherwise you get into the habit of going, oh, it's just another time I didn't get to warm up. Make sure those moments when you don't warm up are the exception. Otherwise, I can't tell you the amount of different places I've warmed up. Green rooms, toilet cubicles, car parks, anywhere that I can find that is off by myself. Sometimes I've had to do warm-ups while I'm bumping in, setting up sound gear, etc. and do my hums and all sorts of things. There's great videos on my channel about warm-ups. So make sure you always look for that opportunity. Be intentional. Create the opportunity to do your warm-up if you can. Rebecca's obviously seen the photo of how beautiful today looks in Australia. We are very fortunate. Okay. So Karen's talking about, I think, some of the cherry picking that we were talking about earlier, where people just take little pieces of information here and there and create a whole theory around it. Be really careful of that. Okay. Going down. Where have we got some more questions? Tony, Dan, do you have any thoughts on the effects of fibromyalgia and hypothyroidism may have upon the singing voice? Both of those issues, I won't unpack them in detail for you now, Tony, but both of those issues can have a significant impact on your voice. And ultimately, we're sort of getting, certainly with hypothyroidism, hypo, for those of you who don't understand, hypo is where the thyroid is not releasing enough hormones Hyper is where it's releasing too much. Both are negative typically for the voice. The thyroid sits down here. The thyroid cartilage is up here, so the thyroid wraps around your larynx, your trachea. So it might be something that I can look at and maybe do a video at some stage in the future. But certainly I would expect that would have some impact on your voice, but it's generally a very individual thing. And so I won't give too much specifics now, if that's okay. Where have we got here? Hey Luke, thanks for that. I actually haven't actually. Oh, so Luke's been. This is what I love about the community. You know, I don't know it all. So, but there are people in this community. You know, Karen from Singwise, as a qualified singing teacher with her own channel. You know, there are people in this community that you can really reach out to that are not me. That it can give you really valuable advice, and yeah, so make sure you take the opportunity to listen to the voices of the community. There is wisdom in the counsel of many, so that's hopefully a good thing. Hey Linda, you might want to see a speech therapist about that. I'd have to go back up and see. Oh, this is back up at the top. Here we go. So here's this question from Linda. What is the cause or mechanism of naturally raspy voice? For example, Rod Stewart, Kim Carnes have always sung with a gritty voice, and I don't think it's from vocal cord damage. Well, I'm not familiar with Kim Carnes' voice. Well, certainly not bringing it to mind. Rod Stewart, however, has had has had multiple surgeries on his voice over the years. There is no such thing as a naturally raspy voice. Now, let me give you an example. My niece has had a relatively raspy voice from the point when she started to talk. Recently, my sister had her taken to an ears, nose and throat doctor, where it was discovered that, in fact, she has had some hearing challenges, which is being fixed with the use of some grommets. But it's actually the hearing that has caused her to overdrive her little voice, and at the age of 4, she's being diagnosed with some nodules. Now, it's not a 4-year-old's fault that they've, found themselves with nodules. It was her hearing that drove that. Now, had my sister not been a singing teacher herself in the past and also had access to talking it with me and me observing, my little niece, she's got, a little bit of a raspy voice there, then she may have, and some people have said to my sister, oh, isn't she cute? It's such a sexy little voice. Not that I enjoy hearing my little 4-year-old niece referred to as sexy, but you get the point, right? And a lot of people would have just gone, oh, she's got a naturally raspy voice. No, she doesn't. And now she's going to be going through some speech therapy to help reduce and resolve those swellings, the nodules on her little vocal folds. And this is really important. People who grow up with naturally raspy voices are not necessarily, let me just get over here, it's not natural. Our bodies do a lot of natural things that are not the best things for them to do. If I walk out in front of a bus and it's going to hit me, my body probably naturally will freeze. That is the last thing my body should do. My body should be getting out of the way of the bus. It's really important that we understand this. This word natural gets thrown around a lot. And so, Linda, when it comes to these voices that we're referring to, they weren't always naturally like that, perhaps. And it just simply shows that the voice has been compromised for a long time, to the point that no one can remember when it was clear. So in the case of the Rod Stewarts, he's had to deal with that on the fly. And this is what I say to all developing singers. Don't deal with your technique before your career takes off. Because if you don't, And if your technique is not a sustainable one, if you cannot sing for long periods of time, then what will happen is your voice could, one can't be categoric, one can't say it will, but we've got plenty of evidence to show with plenty of artists like Rod Stewart, your voice could find itself in really hot water because it's not using a sustainable technique at the time when it really needs it. But what happens is the audience becomes so attached to the sound that they are used to hearing the artist make that if you alter that sound too much, it can really damage the development of that artist's fan base. People start to complain and say the voice is not what it used to be, blah, blah, because they don't understand about vocal health. And so it's really important. Singers, get your technique right before, you know, your big locomotive career leaves the station, because if you've got to fix it on the fly, that's a really hard thing to do. We have only got time for one more question, and I'm going to go down here. And I'm going to give it to someone I don't think we've seen, not your usual guy before. So let me ask, who's from Germany? So not your usual guy is, his name is Nick. Oh, could be her name is Nick. My question is, there you go. Her name is Nick. My question is, I am female to male and taking hormones. My apologies. This is a great question from someone who is taking the journey of the transgender process. Female to male and taking hormones. My voice is changing and I don't want to lose it. Nick, do you know, here's the big benefit, and I do teach a transgender person, and they are undergoing a very similar, the exact process to you. The benefit of the direction that you are transgendering along is from female to male. And the big benefit is that's great because vocally, when you take the hormones, what the hormones are going to do is encourage growth in your larynx. And so you should expect your voice to go through a similar mutational process as any young man who's going through puberty. It's very difficult to go the other direction because once the voice has fully formed, because the human larynx, if I get Lenny down here, so this is Lenny, let me bring this over here. This is such a great question to end our thing on today. So the human voice, this is Lenny. For those of you who have not met Lenny before, he's 2.5 times the scale of an adult male larynx. And the reason I'm specific to gender is because an adult female larynx is smaller, and a prepubescent female male larynx smaller again. So baby bear, mama bear, papa bear is a good way to remember it. Now, so when we're working with transgender voice, we're going from a female size up to a male size. But of course, and so that's we can do that, and we can do that with relative ease. And there are some challenges that, Nick, that you will have to go along as you go along. It's very difficult, as you can see. We can't shrink the larynx back to female. If a person is transgendering from male to female, that we can't take it in the opposite direction. And so that presents some significant challenges. And there are people who specialize in this work, and they are typically speech therapists. But as I said, I've done some work over the years with transgender, and I currently am doing some work with a young person who is transgender. So I hope, Nick, that helps, and you should, but I do want to encourage you, Nick, make sure you do this process, work alongside someone. Not only for support, which you are going to need, and I'm sure that you're doing this alongside a psychologist and almost certainly a psychiatrist, but also alongside a speech therapist. And if you can, if singing is a passion for you and you're wanting to take your voice into and really use your voice a lot for singing, then make sure you work alongside someone that has worked with transgender voice, a singing voice specialist such as myself in your local area, which is Germany. So make sure you have a check out of that. And so that brings us to the end of today's stream. I really hope you've enjoyed today's live hangout. I have. It's a hotly debated issue here online, and I hope you found our discussion today helpful. I hope it feeds into your development, your maturity of singing. And of course, if it is your first time here, we've had a few people on the live chat that it's their very first time hanging out with us. Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell icon on the channel, because then you'll be notified every time I go live. And I do send out pre-recorded videos every Thursday morning, 5 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and you don't want to miss one of those either. So please make sure you jump over and have a watch of
Sound check. Check one.
Whoa,
Check two.
I didn't mean to do It's a challenge of doing all of this by myself. So make sure you have a watch of some of the videos that I've mentioned today. I think you'll find it helpful. Make sure you have a read of the blog. But until I see you in the next Voice Essentials video,
check one.
I'm nervous to hit the button now. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.
Sound check. Check one. Check two.